Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to RobMotive. I had a comment on the channel recently. Someone asked me if I would run through a list of Toyota Tacoma borrowing etiquette. In other words, if somebody asks you to borrow your truck, what should you and they expect when they bring it back or when you give it to them from the start? So I'm going to run through. This is my list. I actually did a little research on the web. There are sites, of course, that run through lists of proper etiquette for borrowing a Toyota Tacoma specifically. Some of them, and I'll get to them at the end, are ridiculous. I would never expect. But there are about 8 things that I would expect if I were to loan out my Toyota Tacoma to somebody. Number 1, they have to have insurance. I mean, you should have insurance to begin with, and your insurance should cover you anyway. But they need to have insurance too. Never borrow or let someone borrow your Toyota Tacoma that doesn't have insurance. I mean, what if something happened? Are you going to pay the full bill? And while we're talking about insurance, it should be clear that if something did happen and your insurance covers it and you have a deductible, they are liable for that deductible. In other words, why would you pay your deductible to fix your truck that they damaged? Something that might sound pretty picky, but pretty important if something happens. Number 2, pick it up and bring it back on time. You know, if you've asked me to borrow my truck and you say you're going to be there at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning to pick it up, I don't expect to be sitting there until noon and then you just leisurely show up to get it. I mean, I have things to do myself, right? Same thing is true when they bring it back. If you're going to have it back by 5 o'clock on that Saturday, make sure that you have it back by 5 o'clock on that Saturday, or at least give me a call, a text, carrier pigeon, something that says that you're going to be delayed. And then it's up to me as to whether or not I need my truck and can let you have it. Now, some people might say, well, they could just bring it back whenever and leave it sit in the driveway. Well, they could. But what about the keys? What are you going to do with them? Now you're opening it up to being stolen. Yeah, you could hide them somewhere, but it's still a possibility. And then there's that worrying factor. You know, if I loan my truck out to somebody and it's supposed to be back at a certain time and you don't show up for hours, I start to think something might be wrong. Number 3, only use it for what you say you're going to use it for. In other words, if you're moving a refrigerator, don't move a whole house with it. Don't take it off-roading. I don't expect to get the truck back and it's covered in mud because you decided, since it's 4-wheel drive and you live near a nice muddy field, you're going to take it out and run it. You know, I remember years ago, a buddy of mine, he borrowed a brand new, nice-looking red Chevy Blazer, 4-wheel drive. He decided to bring it over so all of us could go joyriding in it. He took it down some old railroad tracks where there was brush on each side of the track, and that brush was rubbing against and scraping that truck as we were going. Little scratches all over that truck when we were finished. I bet the owner of it was real happy when he got it back. I'm sure he never intended for this guy to take it off-road and scratch the heck out of it. Don't do that. Number 4, don't mess with the settings. Nothing other than what you have to drive it safely. I mean, I expect you to change the mirrors, right, so that you can actually see. I expect you to change the seat so that you can actually get it the way that you want it. But don't start messing with other things. You know, don't get in the settings on the radio, for example, and start changing the way the lights come on, the way it locks, things like that. There's no need to do that. It's not your truck. Number 5, bring it back with a full tank of gas. I don't care if it was empty when you picked it up. Bring it back with a full tank of gas. It's not much to ask when you're borrowing somebody's truck that you're not paying for, right? Doesn't cost you that much. If it costs you 30 or 40 bucks, it's not going to cost you as much as it would if you had to pay rental and insurance and all the other stuff and the hassle factor of going and renting a truck from a business somewhere. Just common courtesy, common etiquette. Number 6, you are responsible for any damage, anything that happens. If I loan you my Tacoma, I don't expect to have to clean a coffee stain off of the seat. And I'm going to have it professionally cleaned, right? Now you can take a stab at it yourself, but if it comes back with that stain on the seat or that scratch down the side, or maybe a dent because somebody opened their door into it or you slammed something into the tailgate while you were trying to load up, that's your responsibility. And the excuse that, well, it's a truck, does not fly. They cost money, sometimes up to 40 or 50 grand, depending on what trim level you get. Bring it back the way that you got it. Number 7, don't change the radio presets. You know, that is very irritating. You get it back and you go to put it on your favorite channel to listen to the tunes, and they've changed your radio settings. Why would somebody do that? I mean, you're just borrowing the truck. If you've got to change the radio station so that you can jam out while you're moving that refrigerator, do it manually. Don't start messing with the presets. Very irritating. Number 8, again, return it the way that you got it. If it was clean when you got it, it should be clean when you get it back. Don't leave a bunch of trash and junk inside. If you stop off at the McDonald's to get yourself a Big Mac, don't leave those wrappers and everything lying all over the inside of the truck. Drinks inside the cup holders. And speaking of drinks, if you happen to spill something in the cup holder area, wipe it out, or at least say something. Don't leave that Coca-Cola in there to dry out and get all syrupy, sticky for me to find later on. Just a common courtesy. It's just good etiquette. Now, I mentioned there were a few things that some of these sites mentioned that I think are outrageous. Things that you could do if you borrowed somebody's Toyota Tacoma. Number 1, oil change. Get the oil changed. I don't want you changing my oil. Never do that. It'd be a nice gesture, granted, but you know, some of us are very particular about where and how we have things done. I don't want you going through the Quickie Lube and putting water in the oil, you know, some cheapo oil. I have the stuff that I want to use. It's a nice thought, but don't do it. And if you consider doing it, at least ask. You know, hey, I thought I'd get the oil change for you while it was out to kind of thank you for letting me borrow the truck. Then it's up to me, not you. It's my truck. Wash and wax. What? I can't imagine waxing somebody's Tacoma when I buy it. You might wash it if you get it dirty. You might wash it as a gesture, but again, I have my own way of doing things. The way you wash your vehicle might not be the way I wash my vehicle. In other words, using the same sponge to wash the dirty bits as the cleaner parts, scratching it up, in other words. Just don't do it unless you ask and they say it's okay. And if you say it's okay, you're accepting that it's okay however they do it. Recalls. What? Could you imagine borrowing somebody's truck, somebody's Tacoma, there's a recall on it, and then before you bring it back, you take it to a dealership and have it repaired? I think that's one of the craziest ones on some of the lists that I've seen. Don't do it. Add-ons. Why would you put anything else on somebody else's Toyota Tacoma? You know, the simplest one was some kind of a hitch. You know, the ball that goes on the back or something. Don't leave it on the truck. Don't do it at all unless you have to. You know, I might not know you put that ball on there. I've got a tight garage. I back it in and put a hole through my wall because you left that ball on the back of the Tacoma. Just don't do it. Anyway, those are just a few Toyota Tacoma borrowing etiquette things to take note of if you're going to borrow somebody else's truck. Most of them, I think, are just common sense. But then again, not so much. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Do you pay attention to these kind of things when you loan out or borrow somebody's Toyota Tacoma? I'd be curious to know. Do you let somebody borrow it at all? Something I probably would never do. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels. Mod Driven, all about the Honda Civic, 6-speed manual transmission, and RobMotive JT, all about the Jeep Gladiator. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? And while you're at it, smash the subscribe button here too. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.